It's week 6 in the NFL, and we give you our 3 best bets for this Sunday, and it all starts right now. Hey guys, it's Matt from Grandstand Bettors.com, and week 6 of the NFL starts, and we give you 3 of our best bets for this Sunday. But first, before we get into those, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss any of our free picks, predictions, and contests throughout the year. And while you're at it, smash that like button. If you are ready for another fun-filled Sunday of NFL football, I know we are. So, without further ado, let's dive in to week 6 of the NFL and start with the San Francisco 49ers and Atlanta Falcons in the 1 p.m. Eastern time slot. 49ers favored by 5.5 points in this one. Over-under set at 44.5. Now, the 49ers and Jimmy G come into this week sitting at 3-2 atop the NFC West. In fact, they are the only team in that division with a winning record at the moment. They made it look easy last week against the Carolina Panthers, with Garoppolo throwing for 250-plus yards and 2 touchdowns, and Jeffrey Wilson rushing for 120 yards and another touchdown. The rushing attack for the 49ers is what is going to take this team to the playoffs. They're averaging almost 140 yards on the ground per game. Wilson leading the way with 375 yards on the season, averaging over 5 yards per carry. In fact, last week the guy averaged over 7 yards per carry. They most likely will look to continue this trend this week of rushing the football against a Falcons team that's given up 115 yards per game on the ground. But look for Jimmy G to throw the ball a little bit more this week, as the Falcons have the 4th worst secondary in the NFL. They're giving up 278 yards through the air per game, and last week they got torched by Tom Brady and the Bucs for 350. And speaking of the Falcons, if you saw our live show this past Tuesday, we took them as the team that is absolutely killing us to bet against, with backdoor covers that they are getting against some teams. They're 2-3 on the season, but every time they get down big in games, they are scoring at will late in the 4th quarter. In 3 of their last 4 games, they have scored 13 points or more in the 4th quarter, and they are 4th in the league with 4th quarter points, averaging just about 10 per game. Now, just like the 49ers, they have been succeeding more in the rushing game, even despite Patterson being out the last couple of weeks with an injury. In fact, they exceed San Francisco's rushing attack, as the Falcons putting up 165 yards on the ground, which is 4th best in the league in the NFL. We say that a lot in this one. The Falcons 4th best or worse at a lot of things. As we mentioned, though, before, Mariota has just been a game manager, and that's all he needs to be, but he's only really kind of been that at most for the first 5 weeks of the season. He only has a 57% completion rate with over 900 yards on the season, and he's thrown as many interceptions as TDs at 4 for the season. Now, the problem this week is that the 49ers have the best defense in the NFL. They give up a league best 249 yards per game, including only 71 yards on the ground. Although, as a team, the Falcons are averaging over 5 yards per carry with 7 rushing TDs already on the season, this week they may need to come up with a better scheme if they want to compete with the 49ers. So, what is our best bet in this NFC matchup? Well as both of these teams rush the football, both of these teams are also in the top half of the league in rushing defense, with the 49ers being at the top. The Falcons, they have an awful secondary, as we mentioned. If the 49ers get some type of rushing game going, then Jimmy G is just going to use play action and light up that secondary. We see the 49ers pounding the Falcons in the first 3 quarters of this game. However, as we alluded to earlier, the Falcons backdoor cover in the 4th quarter, and we don't want this to happen again. So here is our thought, and we are going to go against the spread here. We think the 49ers are going to put up between 31 to 35 points in this matchup, and the Falcons, they're going to be forced to throw the ball from kickoff. We understand why the over-under for this game is so low with San Francisco's defense, but we think that both teams throwing the ball this game is going to happen. It's going to drag out the game, and the Falcons in that 4th quarter, they're going to put up enough points to help us out. So with our best bet for week number 6, number 1, we are going to take the 49ers and the Falcons over 44.5 points. Now, with our second matchup of week number 6, we're going to look at the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Indianapolis Colts, also in that 1 p.m. Eastern time slot. Colts minus 2.5-point favorites at home here. The over-under set at 41.5. The Jags, they're coming off a rough outing against the Texans in week number 5, losing 13-6, which now puts them at 2-3 on the season. Lawrence hasn't played awful this season. Last week he sure did, but for the season, nearly a 63% completion rate, 8 touchdowns and 1,200 yards passing. One concern with him is, can he hold on to the ball or keep it away from the defenders? He has trouble throwing interceptions to the other secondary. Travis Etienne and James Robinson, they've been two guys trying to take that pressure off of him, and they have been a catalyst behind this offense. Both have combined for 500 rushing yards on the ground, an average 4.5 yards per carry. Though this week, this Jags team may be tamed, no pun intended there, as the Colts have the 4th best rushing defense in the league, although they did give up 125 last week to the Broncos. Regardless, though, the Jags most likely will have to throw the ball this week, and the Colts secondary can be thrown against. And although Lawrence is suspect to throw for some interceptions, this Colts defense, unlike past years, has a very low takeaway number on the season. So I want to talk about the Colts for a moment and the up and down season that they are having. And honestly, that's an understatement. They started the season with a tie to the Texans, lost to these Jags 24-0, and then beat the Chiefs. What team are you going to get week to week has been a complete guess. But with that said, they are still only half a game back of the Titans for first place in the AFC South. Now, this week, they do have an opportunity to get revenge on that Week 2 loss to the Jags, and they're going to look to Matt Ryan to get back into what his career form has been for the last, 15-plus years. Now, like Lawrence, Ryan is having all types of problems with interceptions. In fact, he has more interceptions than TDs on the season with 7. Other than the great completion rate, 66% and 1,400 yards, he has not looked good, really, and he's going to have to get better if they want to compete in the AFC South. Now, Pittman and Pierce have been his go-to receivers. They have over 220 yards on the season each, and for Ryan and the Colts, where their success has been is utilizing all the weapons around him on the field. He's thrown the ball 15 times to 8 different receivers, and 7 of them have over 100 yards receiving. Now, something that hasn't been working well for the Colts has been their rushing attack. Jonathan Taylor, only 328 yards through 5 weeks on the ground, and this team as a whole is only averaging 3.6 yards per carry and only has 1 rushing touchdown on the season. Last time against the Jags, this team only had 54 rushing yards, and honestly, it could be the same thing this time around. Jacksonville has the 6th best rushing defense in the NFL, only giving up 98 yards per game, so expect Ryan and this passing attack to throw 35-plus times this week. So what's our best bet in this AFC South rematch here already in week number 6? Well, the Jags have looked good on the season with the exception of last week's game, and honestly, the Colts have looked horrible, especially without a rushing attack. But last time these two teams played, the biggest problem was honestly the defense of the Colts, and during the last 3 weeks, the Colts defense looks like they have turned a corner, and we like them to continue that trend this week. Also, Frank Reich has never lost to the Jags at home here. So with our second best bet of week number 6, we are going to take the Colts minus 2.5 over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, before we get into that third and final pick of week number 6, just a reminder, if you're looking for our full NFL card, head on over to grandstandbettors.com, become part of our family. The link is below in the description, and we look forward to you joining our team soon. But we do have one more best bet for week 6 in the NFL, and we're going to look at a big one, the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs in the 4:30 p.m. Eastern time slot. Bills, 2.5-point favorites at the moment, over-under set at 53.5. Now, this is going to be a rematch of the NFL Divisional Round game from last season in the playoffs that was epic, and at that time brought up a lot of concerns about overtime in the playoffs. We can leave that for another time, but both of these teams come into this matchup 4-1, and both have struggled in a game or two. Bills are coming off an easy win last week against the horrible Steelers, and Josh Allen and their passing attack is exactly what we expected from them this year. He has a 67 completion rate with 1,650 yards and 14 TDs already on the season, and there are talks of Allen possibly breaking that 55 TD single season record. Diggs has been his go-to receiver with 52 targets already and 39 catches on the season. But Davis has been the deep threat. He already has a 98-yard touchdown this season, which actually was last week against the Steelers. But that guy, Gabriel Davis, is averaging 28.1 yards per catch. That is crazy. Now, if you thought Allen could only sling the ball around, you were wrong. This guy leads the team in rushing with 225 yards on the ground, averaging 6.4 yards per carry. Kansas City has a mediocre defense as a whole, but they really struggle giving up passing yards with their secondary. They are 8th worst in giving up 255 yards through the air, and that is not good coming into this matchup with Josh Allen and the Bills. So what about these Chiefs? Can their offense again outlast the Bills like they did last year? Well, Mahomes had himself a day last week in a 1-point win over the Raiders. He threw for about 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. And you know who else had a day? Travis Kelce, who caught all 4 of those touchdown passes. The amazing thing about that stat line is Kelce had 4 touchdowns with only 25 yards receiving. It just tells you how much of a red zone target he becomes for Mahomes. Now, Mahomes, like Allen, around 67% completion rate, 1,400 yards, and there's also a discussion with him for breaking the single-season TD record, as he actually has more than Allen on the season with 15 already. Edwards-Helaire has been great in the rushing attack, especially when Mahomes and that passing attack need a little bit of a breather, but this week, he's going to be going up against the NFL's second-best rushing defense, so who knows how many touches he actually gets in the backfield. So, what is our best bet in this offensive juggernaut game? Well, Josh Allen and this offense have been phenomenal, but let's be honest, they've only played one team out of the bottom 8 of the NFL in total defense. The Chiefs, they faced 2 of the top 10 defenses already this season, and they averaged 29 points per game against those 2. Again, this should be a high-scoring game, but we're going to look away from the total here and pick a side. The Bills still have that devastating loss on their minds from last season, and I'm sorry, Bills fans, but you're going to have to relive that once again. The Chiefs are on a roll offensively. So with our final best bet for week number 6 in the NFL, we are going to take the Kansas City Chiefs plus 2.5 over the Bills. And to be brutally honest, we think the Chiefs actually will cover the money line here at plus 120 as well. Well, that does it for us here at Grandstand Bettors. As always, sit back, relax, enjoy week 6 of the NFL, and we'll see you right back here live for Browns Patriots on Sunday.